How come no one's talked about this before? Because I haven't heard these ideas. Tucker hadn't heard these ideas. Most people haven't. How come it took you to really articulate them to the world?
Well, I've been screaming about them to the top of my lungs for eight years. I think what it's taken has been a couple of sort of strange, fortuitous bounces in geopolitical affairs and in the natural sort of momentum it takes for things to break through, in the sense that, when I first started talking about this in late 2016 and 2017, and I said, look at these DARPA grants, look at this thing called natural language processing, which basically treats online speech on the internet like a chess position, looks at moves and allows you to micro-target every different, misinformation community in the world. This is going to wipe out, all speech on the internet that's opposed to the Pentagon priorities. And everyone would say, oh, that's crazy. They're not, first of all, how do you really know? Just because it's in a DARPA white paper doesn't mean they're actually going to do it. And so, well, here they're doing it. Here they're funding. There's this group. Here's here's the Atlantic Council, and here's the 7 CIA directors on the board. They get annual funding from the Pentagon. They're using this for this. Well, it's okay. Well, what are the specific accounts, that are being targeted by that? Okay, well, then it takes a year for that to come out, for that to happen. And at the time, people didn't want to believe, by the way, any of this was happening for the first 3 years. When I was in the White House talking about this and doing my morning Mecca between the first and third floor, telling everybody, that the sky was falling down. I was Chicken Little. It was people didn't want to even think this story was possible because of how much it would require inverting the pretty little world and the little comforts they could take, thinking that they could take on internet censorship at a much easier level. I'll give you a great example of this. Is the Trump administration, and I'm not casting aspersions on this, by the way. The administration has to deal with a whole different set of pressures that I didn't have to deal with, dealing with the donors and dealing with, coalitions and alliances in Congress, and then dealing with the base and messaging and 12,000 other issues on both domestic and foreign policy. It's easy to understand the instinct that I think that the Trump White House had, which was, if what you're telling me is true, we can't stop this anyway because of all the other things, or other balls that would have to drop, or because we need favors from this coalition for this and that. So in 2019, 2020, there was something very fashionable around something called Section 230. You may recall this. This was basically a protection from defamation and other kinds of tort liability, a safe harbor that was given to internet platforms if they were independent and neutral, that distinguish them from publishers. So, for example, social media are said to be platforms rather than publishers under this Section 230 law, because if I make a tweet that, say, hypothetically defames another person on Twitter, for example, then someone could sue me for defamation, for example, on that, but can't sue Twitter just for hosting that platform, only because Twitter is under Section 230 deemed to be a platform rather than publishing it, that my tweet itself. So if the New York Times were to have said the same thing, someone could sue the New York Times. But if the New York Times puts that same article on Twitter, then Twitter won't be held liable, only because of this platform publisher distinction. The New York Times is a publisher. Twitter is simply hosting that. So, it became very evident in 2019, 2020. After, 2017 was when this consensus building architecture really came out. 2018 was when it all started to really get set up. 2019 is when it really started to snowball and heads started to fall, online, from the political censorship of early 2019 into the COVID censorship that would happen starting in December 2019. And so, Section 230 was sort of, had a lot of attention in the early days in 2019, 2020, even 2021, because if you could simply say, hey, you know what, these Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you guys have become publishers now. And so we're going to remove your safe harbor because you're making editorial decisions about what is postable on your platforms in the same way that publishers do. You are really a publisher now, because I can't publish freely on your platform if I'm a COVID dissident, or I don't believe mail-in ballots are safe and secure, or I've got this, this perception on things like immigration or other things that were deemed to be, hate speech or misinformation. So there was a very strong argument to be able to, repeal those Section 230 protections if you could solve the complex sort of legislative Chinese finger trap of it all. And so there's a natural desire, I think, for people to want to focus on easy solutions at the legislative level that wouldn't require them to do trench warfare, hand-to-hand combat with the Pentagon or the State Department or the CIA or 10,000 different NGO institutions on USAID or National Endowment for Democracy payroll, or to sort of. No one wanted to stare directly into the sun. No one wanted to believe it. And so, I think it took, until late into once the cancer had already metastasized for people to actually come to grips with what they were actually up against.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public. And he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. The greedy bankers are about to do it again. In 2008, they crashed our financial system and nearly bankrupted the entire global economy. Then they received trillions of dollars in government bailouts. And after, they demanded fat bonuses paid for by you, the taxpayer.
It turns out the banks haven't just been screwing the American taxpayers, they're also screwing over their investors. Turns out the banking industry is the worst place you could put your money, despite enormous taxpayer bailouts.
Now the bankers are back to take away your financial freedom. They lie and tell you that cryptocurrency isn't safe. They try to make it illegal for you to choose how to invest your hard-earned money. They lie and say cryptocurrency is used by money launderers and criminals. But look at the record. It's the banks themselves that launder hundreds of billions of dollars every year to the biggest criminal operations in the world.
Leaked documents have revealed how some UK banks have helped criminals, money launderers and Russians under sanctions.
American authorities discovered that the Sinaloa cartel moved $881 million through HSBC accounts as bank officials turned a blind eye to the illegality.
The bankers lie and say cryptocurrency is not a real investment. Meanwhile, the smartest CEOs in the world are buying billions and billions of it. The truth is that banks lie about cryptocurrency because it makes them scared. The banks take $9 trillion per year of your hard-earned money, and they are worried that they will finally be exposed. They're scared because crypto means they can no longer control your money, which means they can no longer control you. They are scared because you might actually understand your money and intelligently decide what to do with it. Now is the time for us to come together, fight back, and take control. It's time to educate ourselves, our families, and our communities. Because financial education means financial freedom. We know that cryptocurrencies will help us build the new decentralized financial system of the future. A banking system that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. A banking system where access to finance is a fundamental human right. A banking system that is free and fair, and welcomes all humans on this earth. The DeFi revolution is happening. We, the people, can no longer be fooled. We choose to take control of our finances. We choose to take control of our freedom. We choose to take control of our future. Join us, and let's take back our financial freedom forever.